Before we start this show, just a word from our sponsor, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest that pro wrestling has had to offer. Along with their awesome line of pro wrestling apparel, they do offer many services. In the world of wrestling, there are hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads. Don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. If you would like to discuss possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or whatever, drop them a line. Go to 20 by 20 Apparel. That's the number 20x, the number 20 apparel.com. Now, let's get to the show.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bummy, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what are those. You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grind and shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all. Cause it's nothing to me, it's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop at the mall. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. I tell I'm running out of breath, I tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh. Fresh, 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 goddammit, we fresh. Fresh, fresh, goddammit, we so damn fresh.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And on Fresh is the Word, we like to deliver wisdom through great stories from the minds of bright creatives of pop culture. Through those stories, we like to dissect the journey of our guests and present actionable lessons and advice for our listeners, no matter what career or avenue of artistry they pursue. And before we get into this episode, I want to give a shout out to Knox Money, Bang Belushi, and Foulmouth for the theme music for Fresh is the Word. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can always go to freshisthepodcast.com and just share any of the links for any of the episodes on any of your social media platforms. And also, you can subscribe to Fresh is the Word pretty much anywhere that podcasts are streamed. And that includes Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, pretty much everywhere. And please rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts. It will definitely help out the show. If you want to contact me, you can always reach me by email at djkfresh@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at KFresh is the word, and on Facebook at facebook.com/KFresh. And you can also follow Fresh is the Word on Twitter at Fresh is the Word, and that's is with an IZ, Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, and Facebook at facebook.com/Fresh is the Podcast. And this is episode 145. The guest for this episode is Toronto hip-hop legend Choclair. Now this is a bucket list interview for me. The Toronto hip-hop scene that came from the late 1990s, which also included Cardinal Official, Socrates, and Maestro Fresh West, among many others, is so personally special to me. As someone who frequented Toronto throughout my life, it's like a second home to me. My goal is to get all those names I just named on this podcast, and we are one down already with Choclair. During our conversation, we reminisced about that Toronto hip-hop scene from the 90s, along with breaking down his career during albums like 1999's Ice Cold, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, along with 2002's Memoirs of Blake Savage. We also get into the lessons he's learned over the years in his storied music career, his beginnings in music, the aesthetics of Toronto as a city and its artistry, and so much more. And without further ado, let's get into the interview with Choclair. Yeah, like I said in my original email to you, like my goal this year was to try to interview as many of the Toronto hip hop pioneers that I'm a fan of as I can. You're the first person I've been able to get something scheduled with, so thank you for that.
No problem, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate you looking at us. We appreciate the sunlight.
Right, like see, all my life I've been going to Toronto. When I was a kid, I was going there for family trips, for Blue Jays versus Tiger games because I'm down here in Detroit. I've always been familiar with Toronto, and then later on, I because there was kind of a sort of a kinship between Detroit hip hop and Toronto hip hop. I always was kind of like sort of paying attention to what was going on with the hip hop scene in Toronto, and like the stuff that was coming out in the '90s when you were first starting was just such a special time. So I'm like so glad I'm able to talk with you about it. But first off, what are you doing these days?
Now, nowadays, I'm about to go and re-release the Ice Cold record that I put out in '99. It's the 20th anniversary year, and we're going to re-release that. Plus, I'm working on another record, so I'll have like 2 records out this year. One of the great things about like the connection, like you were mentioning about the connection with Toronto and Detroit, was Windsor Sports Weekend. And
Yes.
we used to always go down to Windsor Sports Weekend. That was actually one of the first times that I got to see Kid Capri live. And I can't even tell you how much this guy killed the party. It's like he would play 4 to 8 bars of a track and then drop another track. Like it was almost like, like I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go and figure out where's the chair that I could throw? What do I need to do? I need to do something. I don't know what to do because he was doing such a great job. And it was Winter Sports Weekend. And that's kind of how what I believe, like some of our connection, because I know that Thrust, an artist from up here, Thrust, and he does a lot of work with Frank and Dank from down there. And, so it was, I think that had a lot to do with it. But yeah, and then it's a border town, and we used to go there all the time, and it was just an awesome fit, like just whatever, and we would take the 4-hour drive down. It's like just as long as going to Ottawa, but it's just the opposite direction. So Toronto and Detroit definitely have a connection for sure.
Right. Yeah, and it is the 20th anniversary of the Ice Cold album, and that's just such a classic Toronto hip hop album. I was listening to it before we talked today, and I'm like, wow, this is so good, And when thinking back, when you first started getting into the hip hop scene out there in Toronto, looks like your debut single was back in 1995 when you released 21 Years. What was when you look back at that, what really comes to mind? What sort of fond memories do you have of that time when you first started breaking into the hip hop scene?
You know what? It was one of the things that I can remember about everything like that was just doing music. It's what I wanted to do. I just like to go and write. I was a fan of the music. My older brother got me into hip hop back in the 80s. And it was just doing music and then connecting with people like Socrates and Cardinal and everybody and just going in the studio and doing music. I really didn't have a thought about it, although I was just like, just about like, yeah, this sounds good. And, tell me what you think too, type thing. And, it was really just doing the music. That's all that it was about, was doing music.
Yeah, when you go back to that time, whether it was you, Socrates, Cardinal, July Black, the Rascals, it was just like all the music that you guys were doing just was so good. It was such a special time. Why do you feel like everything came out to be so good and it was so receptive by everybody?
Well, I believe that I was working with very talented people. All of the names that you mentioned and that I mentioned as well, I think that they're super talented. I thought that they were really cool, and they were really cool people. They are still really cool people, and we just had the same passion and love for what we were doing, which was music. So we would go into the studio and literally just sit there and come up with stuff and go and create and just create. And that was the best part about it, because we were friends and we loved music, and that just kind of came out, and it was like the love of music and whatever, and trying to do the best that we could go and do. And that was our whole vibe and everything. It was amazing. Like, it was good. Like, those times being in the studio with those guys and girls was amazing. And we had a lot of jokes, and we spent a lot of time sun up to sundown, leaving at 11 o'clock, being there at 6 p.m. and leaving at 11 a.m., but getting like 5 songs done. It's like, it was great. It was an awesome experience.
Yeah, when you first started, you had these singles, these EPs that got a lot of love, independently. You put them out yourself, and then you link up with Virgin and Priority for your debut album. What was that time like? Going from independently putting out your own stuff to linking up with a major label.
It was definitely different because, I was saying before, it was like we used to just go and just make music. But now, like when you got like a label behind you, like there's a bit more pressure. It's not necessarily about making music. It's about making hits and songs, whatever, that'll have like some type of longevity or pop right away and be like a top 10 Billboard or something like that. And it was cool because everybody at the label was cool. Like everybody at the label, it was in that time, like when people used to go and, remember when they used to go and put like posters on light posts and stuff, and the street teams and all that other stuff. So everybody was invested on it in that way, because, it was the Virgin Street Team or BMG Street Team or Universal Street Team or Sony Street Team. It was every Warner Street Team. Everybody was trying to go and do whatever. But the difference is that now you're doing it. Now you're not just doing it because you want to go and just go and do your music. You have to go and do music that actually is a product that needs to go and sell. So it was great to be a part of that. I think, though, at the same time, there was like a pressure to go and sit there and do songs that would sell. So it kind of changes your mind. I'm not saying for the worse or the better. I'm just saying it's like then you had to be more focused on the music that you were doing, because that was the business that you were in.
How did you sort of, during that time, balance the artistry of the music that you wanted to do and what the label expected of you as a product?
Well, honestly, to be honest, they didn't tell me what to do and how to record. They didn't tell me anything like that. They never put that pressure, but that pressure of going into, like I'd be sitting at Virgin all day doing interviews all day, like from like 11 till 6 p.m. Like you're on the phone, get off the phone, pick up the phone, another call, get off the phone, get whatever. They never really pressured me about what I was going to record, but I knew just on the strength, I knew that they wanted me to go and create songs that got me, like, I guess, to the dance now make people dance. And so it's a different type of vibe. But, like, at the end of the day, they were very cool. I have nothing bad to say about Virgin. They were very cool. I have to give a very special shout out to Russell Hergert. He was the guy that got me in there, and things were still good. Things were still good, and everything was good, and there wasn't really any kind of change. But I knew what the change was and what they expected, and I had to go and sit there and step up to the challenge.
Yeah, during that time, there was a lot of great Toronto hip hop artists, but like the top three that people knew were you, Cardinal, and Socrates. What was it about you three that just made, that everybody just thought everything you guys did was so special? Why did you feel like you connected so much with your audiences?
I think just because we weren't trying to do anything that wasn't real. We just did our thing. Like, me and Sox were from the east end of Toronto, which is Scarborough. Cardi is from, like, Midtown Toronto, Uptown, he calls it, which was Oakwood and Vaughan. And then just our experiences in living where we lived brought our own experiences to it. And then we talked about stuff that was relevant to everybody else. We didn't try to go and boost ourselves up and do all of this and do all of that. We just rapped about what was whatever. So everybody and people across city lines, like wherever, West End, East End, North End, whatever, everybody can relate to it. And that's the thing that we do, and that's the thing that we continuously do, is we just go and say what we are doing, and and then that's why when I walk up and down in Scarborough, and then Scarborough guys will go and be like, yo, you know what? Yeah, man, Scarborough, and then West End man will be like, yeah, respect still, and then whatever. But that's just what we did, and I think that's what we connected with other people, is that we didn't try to be, because remember, that era was like, that was the 90s, was the Versace and this and the Lamborghinis and the Lexus 300s and all these other different things. And we just kind of, not that we wouldn't like all of that stuff, but we just came direct with who we were and what we were doing, and we just rapped and sat there and put it into it. I don't even want to say like we just rap. We put poetry and music in. We put poetry to music and talked about the stuff that other people would go and it would resonate with them.
Speaking of experiences, during that time in the 90s, what was Toronto like at that time? Not just like the hip hop scene, but just the city in general. What were these experiences that you were drawing upon?
Well, a lot of times what ended up happening is that there was a lack of self-confidence. Let's just say that. People would go and sit there and try and put it in a way like where, they would wear Pittsburgh Pirate hats or Philadelphia Phillies or LA Dodgers or New York Yankees or whatever. When you go and do battles, like people used to come to the school. That's what it was. People would come to my high school when I was in high school, and go and be like, oh, we hear that you're the rapper over there. And they would bring other people from their school and battle. And then the whole school, like, it's just crazy. But the whole school would jump out of class and leave and go because there's a big battle back by the gymnasium.
Yeah, nice.
And that's what would happen. And then the thing that I'm glad to see that's happened is that now everybody wears J hats. Yes, you have your own team. You're going to see somebody with a Pittsburgh Pirate hat. That might be their team, whatever. But we have like this silent pride. It's like we don't go and sit there. We'll wear our hats. We'll wear our things. We'll wear stuff like, Roots Apparel or whatever, homemade clothing companies that make stuff like says Toronto versus everybody and whatever. And people feel that pride to be able to do it. But our thing also is that we tread lightly, but if you say something, whatever, then people go and sit there and defend the turf, and they go and they'll be like, nah, you can't go and say this about this guy, that guy, this thing or that thing. It's just funny because I was on my TV right now, I'm watching CNN and I'm watching all these things, and you guys are having like a whole argument about healthcare. You know what? If I break my leg, go to the doctor, get it fixed. Don't cost me a cent.
Right.
But if you break your leg, you got to go and call your insurance or whatever. So there's the things that we actually go and sit there and say about ourselves. We're very diverse. That's another great thing about us. We're very diverse. You have Hindu rappers, Chinese rappers, rappers from all sorts of everywhere and everywhere. And we just and we embrace it, and we go and sit there and say that's good stuff, and we love it. And I think that's been the transition is right now is that everybody is we're proud of ourselves, and we won't let anybody talk bad about ourselves at all because we're proud of it. And this is not just Toronto; this is Canada on a whole.
Right. I remember when I first started, like as an adult, coming to Toronto, and kind of witnessing the hip hop scene out there. I did notice that at the time there was sort of like a lack of like that, city pride or anything. Like you said, they would wear like the Pirates hats or the Phillies hats or like the Detroit hats or something. You'd see like a lack of that identity within, outwardly from a lot of people in the hip hop scene. I did notice that, but like you said, there has been a transition to, where there is a deep Toronto Canadian pride with the people there now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you go and see, and I'll go and whatever, like my friends that are on Instagram or wherever, and you go and sit there and you'll see somebody at some type of high cliff in Spain sitting there smiling and putting up Canada. So you're absolutely correct on that. There was one, but now it's not there anymore. It's everybody is like, yeah, I'm here and I'm Canadian. I'm from this place, that place, that place. It's always funny because when I meet with some of the hip hop artists from the States, they'll go and they'll be in a city and they'll be like, what's up, Canada? And I'm like, yeah, well, Canada is like the third biggest country in the world.
Yeah,
so
there's a lot of Canada.
Where are you? There's a lot of Canada. It's like, are you in Vancouver? Are you in Toronto? Are you in Calgary, Edmonton, Montreal, Halifax, Newfoundland? Where are you? Yeah. And then whatever. But everybody that are in those cities and more that I mentioned, they sit there and they stand up for themselves and they go and they'll be like, yeah. And it is great to see. It's such a good thing to see. It's great to go and have the pride and in our city, in our country, and in our music, because we just do it. And it's just different. Like we go and we, from Southern rap. So guys coming from Louisiana or Florida or Texas or New Mexico or Arizona or something like that, they have a different drawl in the way that they speak.
Right.
We up here in Canada, because a lot of us, our parents came in like the 60s or the 70s and came up here. So a lot of us right now, we're first generation Canadians. So we go back and take, and I'm not just talking about black guys. I'm talking about people coming from Eastern European and Western Europe and everything like that, and wherever. So we have cultural stuff that we bring into our music.
Yeah.
And then because we're so inviting up here, is that people like it. Like, you know, people go, whatever, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of sushi, but like they're always trying to bring me to go and have sushi. I'm not and then all of a sudden we're having Bulgarian potatoes and Ukrainian chicken. I don't even know. But it's like there's a whole bunch of stuff, and then that's whatever it is, and that's what brings us into an inclusive, and then also goes, and when we go and talk, especially for the Caribbean and West Indian, it's like we mix patois and hip hop together. So when we talk, we'd be like, "Hey, Wagwan B, what's going on, King?" That's how we talk. That's how you can always tell a guy that's from Toronto. Because he mixes patois with hip hop, and that's how we talk, because that's just how we do.
Yeah, I've always noticed the fantastic diversity of Toronto, whether it's like you say, the language. There's so many like beautiful women in Toronto.
Summer in Toronto is so lovely.
Oh my God!
If you want to see anything, whatever, Toronto in the summer, jeez. Like I get New York, I get New York, I get Florida, I get everything, but they have nothing on women in Toronto. Nothing.
I second that, man. I second that. I've been up there during the summertime, and Toronto in the summertime is a great place.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
With all this sort of, you know, fantastic diversity in Toronto, you know, how do you feel like that has, you know, influenced your own music, and how do you feel like it's shaped the hip hop scene in general over the past 20, 30 years?
Well, what I do remember is there was an article, I think it was in the Source magazine back in the day, and they were looking at Toronto, and they called it the Final Frontier. I don't know which one it was. I had the magazine. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't quote what number it was, but it was in the Source magazine. And then I was in the Source magazine also, like when they used to do the Unside Hype and everything like that. The way that it goes and it does it is that because we're just fans of the music. Toronto is a very hard place to go and do stuff. Now, it may have softened over the years because now we're getting attention and people just want things to come in. But at the beginning, you couldn't go and do a show that was whack. They would literally walk out and steal your turntable, bottle you at the front, do all sorts of stuff. Like it was like, you know, like I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying that's what happened.
Right. That's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you weren't good or if you didn't do an effort, then it wasn't worth their time. They'll say, I spent $20 on this crap. No. But now it's like, okay, so our thing is that because we are so, again, going back to the diversity, because we are so diverse, because we actually go and sit there and look at music and go and directly try to do great music. And we try to go and sit there and be like, this is the music that we want to do, and this is what we think is dope. We actually take the time to put in our music and make it good. We're not trying to go for the quick hit. We're not trying to go and get the first pop hit. Our thing is like, I hope it pops. I hope it hits. But I'm going to do music regardless. And I think because of our credibility on that thing is why everybody, and in my opinion, people are stealing stuff, or at least looking at stuff in when they're making their music, and they're basing it on what's going on in Canada. Because we have a big land. We don't have a lot of people. Like, we have 35 million. You guys have 35 million in New York City alone.
Right.
So we try to go and sit there and give our 35 million music and go and sit there and do it. And I think that's what it is. It's just because we focus on that. We don't focus on the hit. And whatever, like somebody's going to probably say, yeah, it's all about making money. Yeah, that's good. Everybody wants to make money.
Of course.
That's awesome. Make money. That's great. But there's an authenticity behind it. And I believe we Canadian artists, we have authenticity behind it because we just do music we just do great music. And with authenticity. We don't try to cater to the market. We make the market, in my opinion.
Why do you feel like at times it's been so hard, though, for Canadian artists to break out in the U.S.?
I think it's just because the U.S. is the U.S. You guys have a lot of artists. Like, you got a lot of people, like, just doing whatever. Like, again, like, you guys are, forget about New York City. You guys are like 300 and something million people.
Right.
And then you have a lot of people that are just doing music on every level. And whether they rise to the top like the next biggest artist up there, or whether somebody just goes and does college shows or clubs around the way and still makes a living, whatever. There's a whole something there. For everybody else, we just try to go and do it. I don't know what it is. I just know that we have heart and passion. We don't try to we want to make hits, but we don't make hits to go in. We don't coerce ourselves to go and change what we want to do just for that fact. We try to go and just do our music knowing we want to go and make hits. Absolutely, we want to go and do it, but we just work ourselves. And that's the work ethic that we go and do, and that's what Canada just wants to do. And hip-hop artists and musical artists, R&B artists, every type of artist, country artists, any type of artist, that's what we do here. We just do it. And that's going to be the difference right now. Who knows what maybe it might change in a couple of years and whatever, I don't know, but that's what is getting our attention right now. We just do our music. We just do dope stuff. We dope. We are little brothers up north. And we're telling you guys, all right, yeah, you know what? Panda was good, but that was the panda. Now let's get to the grizzly bear.
Yeah. After a few years after the Ice Cold album, you came out with the Memoirs of Blake Savage. That was another album that was on Virgin Music Canada. What was your experience like that, and what led to parting ways with Virgin after that album?
It was great doing that record. What happened is that everybody that was a part of the Ice Cold record got promotions.
Right.
So my A&R became the A&R of France and England. One of my other guys got their own record deal. Another guy became president of Universal or vice president of Universal. Another guy became whatever. Everybody off my record got promotions.
That always happens. They either get promotions or they get fired, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, and no one got fired. Everybody got promotions. And then what ended up happening was, and I knew some of these guys, but they were new guys. And then you'll hear it in the song Skyline that I have. It's like new blood, new heart, but they ain't birthed it. And mergers make them nervous because also at that time, that was when all the company, like you had Napster and you had all these other things going on and whatever, and the music industry vibes were changing and whatever, and everybody was whatever. But the main thing was like, you weren't there to birth it. Like, it's not your egg that you're walking with. It's not your something, and as much as they did their thing and wanted to go and be a part of whatever, they weren't that guy. They were great people, and I'm still very much good friends with all of them. But it just changed. Everything changed. Everybody that was on my record when I first put out Ice Cold left and got a promotion. And then everybody that was put in was very cool people. Nothing bad to say about them at all. But you're just walking into a project. And that's what decided to make me go and say, I'm going to go and leave Virgin. But then I put out my next record, which was called Flagrant, and some way, somehow, through whatever, it still went through EMI, and that was my fourth Juno, which is our Grammys up here, and that was my fourth Grammy Juno that I got up here.
Okay.
So I still work with all of them, but it was just the fact that they didn't birth it. They didn't birth the project. Their invested effort wasn't there. No, I don't want to say that. Their invested effort, not that it wasn't there. They obviously wanted to go and do it really great, but their invested effort wasn't from the birth point of the project. That's what I'm trying to say.
How did it feel to, you leave Virgin Music and you start your own independent label, you put out Flagrant, and you still win a Juno Award? What was going through your mind at that time, when you won that award, in regards to doing an album that you did independently, even though it still got distributed through EMI?
It felt great because it felt like it wasn't like I was put there by the machine. And what I mean by the machine is like the record company.
Yeah.
It was like, no, people actually go and check my material and everything. And there's a bunch of songs like Skyline, and then there's Who That Is, and all these other tracks that went and did that. And then also for me, it's like, and then for everybody else, it was like, shocks to this record. The first record I did after I left the record company was acknowledged in that way. And it was great because it's like, obviously anybody, let's just say if somebody came up to you and said, yo, you want $100,000 to go and do what you want to do? Of course you're going to say yes.
Yeah. Right.
But then when you do what you do, and you didn't go and sit there and take the $100,000 from those guys, but you go and sit there and be recognized on what you did, then you feel great too, because it wasn't about the promo. Because people could go and promo everything. Like, you know what? We have this roll up the rim to win in Tim Hortons in Toronto, in Canada. But nobody can roll up the rim because it's so hard to roll the rim up. So some guy went and made a hook. I don't know. You could just go and put like a clothes hanger in a cork from a wine bottle. And then all you got to do is, then that's what you use to pull it up. Now, he could just go and sit there and everybody can be like, yeah, this is a great idea. Guess what happened? And Tim Hortons bought that. and now you can buy that. Well, I don't know. I'm not saying for sure. I don't know for sure, but I do know the story, and that's great because he sold, I don't know, probably 100,000 corkscrews with a hook in there to go in. It's great. It's great because you have people backing you and money backing you. But then when you just go and do it, and the fact that they're going and looking at you to go and do it, that's an awesome thing. This is great. I have no. It's just great. It's just good. I have nothing bad to say about anything like that. It's good. I didn't have the bad record company experience that some people may have had. I had real good people and sat there and did what we needed to do, and it did what it did. And then when I left the record company and I decided to do what I wanted to do on my own, it just proved that I was good without them. I was already good before them.
Right.
And then I just did what I did after them. And I'm doing that right now. We got records coming out and music coming out. And yeah, I did it through my whole 20s and 30s. That was my life.
Yeah.
And now I'm a little bit older. And here we go. And I'm doing it again. And guess what? Guess who's knocking at the door? Those guys again.
Right.
Oh, we hear you're doing something and blah, rah, rah. And I'm like, I don't need much. But if you want to get involved, guess what you're going to have to do? Because now I can call my own shots, right?
Right. Over the years, being both doing, putting out your music independently and being a part of a machine like Virgin Music, how do you feel like you were able to be successful and not have those really bad experiences that a lot of people have, both working with a major label and doing it independently?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. I just worked with all these guys. The funny thing is that when I signed with Virgin, my press person was, I actually went to high school with him. And my DJ worked as promo for the record company. It's just something that just happened that way. So as far as everything goes, I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that. I just know that independently or professionally, as far as working with Virgin and everything like that, people believed in me, believed in the product, and they continue to do that as it is. And they're very good and they're very good, and I'm good friends with them as today is.
When you kind of think back to, these past 20 plus years, your class of Toronto hip hop is still very much appreciated here in 2019. You said you're still doing things and putting out music, and people are, knocking on your doors, calling you up. You see Cardinal, doing the tree lighting at Eaton Center. You see Socrates, he's still around. How does it feel to still be appreciated after all this time?
It feels really good. And you know what? And it's I get messages all the time about, certain songs. I have a song Made to Move Mountains. I have a song Skyline and whatever. And people will go and sit there and be like, I listened to that song and it got me through whatever. Or they use it. Made to Move Mountains is something that people, I don't know, for whatever reason, they use it to go to the gym and go and keep pushing and do their legs or whatever they're doing. It feels great. It feels great because that's what I'm trying to do. I just try to go and make music. I call it food for the soul. And I try to go and sit there and make music that people will appreciate, and people will go and it'll sink into them. And then they can use it for whatever they need. And that's why I'm very careful of what I say, because I said this in one track. I said every time I have to quote myself, I can't remember my lines. But when I perform, I know my words. But it's watch what I say, because I influence behavior. And that's what I say, because I try to go and sit there. I'm just like you. I'm not anybody, whatever. I enjoy, like, when I watch the guys that are sitting there in their truck and they go and fix the street lights or something, or building a house or doing a roof. I'm like, I work just like you. I wish I could do that. I just don't do that. My talent is doing music or writing words to music. But I need you. If my house roof blows away, I need you, and I appreciate your job. So I don't go and disregard anybody on anything that they're doing. If they pushing themselves and getting things going and whatever, then I'm a fan of them. Whether they're a fan of me, they probably don't know that I'm a fan of them, but I'm actually a fan of them.
Over the years, there was definitely a big shift in Toronto hip hop when you have somebody like Drake becoming very popular, both in Toronto, in the U.S. and worldwide. What was, when he hit it big and just the years to come after that, what was the sort of general consensus of the hip hop scene in Toronto in regards to Drake and the sort of sounds he would start to usher in for Toronto music?
I think it was like people were like, wait, but what? And then people didn't know how to, they liked it, but they didn't know if they should like it. Like, they were almost like a little bit like, we like this guy, but if I like this guy, is everybody else going to go and have the same opinion? But he's done what he's done, and he's been great. He's been doing great stuff, and he's been doing amazing stuff for the city. So there's nothing but love going on Drake's side. I have nothing bad to say about him. We met a couple of times. I don't know him personally like that. Like, we don't have each other's phone numbers or anything like that. But he's great. He does great music, and he reps, and that's great. And that's what people need, especially for the young kids coming up, because then they go and see how they can succeed and be somebody wherever. So I'm happy about it. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for his success and everything that he's done for the city of Toronto. I'm so happy for him, and I'm glad for him.
Right. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. I see that on your Twitter account that you're a wrestling fan. You watch a lot of WWE. I'm a big wrestling fan also, and we're in WrestleMania season. What you been digging on these days?
Man, well, I love wrestling. I watch it all the time as much as I can. I try to record it. I record every pay-per-view. I know SummerSlam is coming to Toronto, but damn, man, the tickets are like $1,700 to go to, like, get a front row, whatever.
Right.
I don't know. Anybody that's listening or whatever, any WWE people listening to this, hook a brother up, because I'm a true fan. I have a belt in my house. I do all of that. I'm a big fan of wrestling. I try to go there. I had the pleasure of meeting what's his name there? Martino's Samarella.
Oh,
They have
yeah.
they have a show up here called Aftermath,
Yeah.
and it's usually on Tuesdays, and it's like 7:30 to 8 right before SmackDown comes in on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of that, and then I meet a lot of people. I was actually at wrestling. I was dealing with these guys. This thing is called Smash Wrestling,
Yes.
which is an indie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an indie something, but whatever. So me and this guy named Kevin Bennett, we got beef. He wanted to go and sit there and tell me about something. So me and him are going to go and deal with it on April 27th. And I'm there.
Yeah, I've been to a few Smash shows when I was out there, and I know you're talking about Kevin Bennett. Yeah.
Yeah, and me and him, we have something to settle because he kicked me in the belly and put me out. And so I'm going to go and check him on April 27th. I'm going to go and check him on April 27th.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love going to the Smash shows. I've been to like one or two of them previously, a couple years ago, and they put on some good shows, man. I enjoy them.
Yeah, it's really good, and it's great, and I just got to go and deal with Kevin Bennett. That's all I got to deal with. I got to deal with Kevin Bennett. He thinks he's rocking it. He's from Buffalo, so he's trying to go and do the same thing. It's like, yo, we're American and we trying to run it. I'm like, yo,
nah,
Canada, stand up, let's go.
Nah,
so
man.
me and Kevin going at it on April 27th.
Awesome, that is great. That's great. Yeah,
man.
I was out in Toronto a few years ago when Survivor Series was out there. I didn't go to Survivor Series, but I did go to the NXT Takeover event.
Oh yeah, and those are great as well. I don't get to follow it as much because I'm more into whatever. And but whenever I do, because I have the WWE Network, so I watch it, and I watch the there's the NXT UK NXT period, and NXT whatever. There's a whole bunch of whatever. So I see it all the time. But I will say that I wait for the guys to get. It's like watching the Blue Jays, or for you, the Detroit Tigers Farm League. You want to see what they do when they get up to the major leagues, like when they get up to the Detroit Tigers, or when they get up to the Toronto Blue Jays. And so for wrestling, I watch it, but I just want to see them when they go, like Oksana and everybody and whatever. I do believe that they're going to go in WrestleMania because they gave Charlotte Flair the belt on Monday. I believe that they're making them the 4-horse woman, and that's what they're going to go and try and do. But I love it, and I'm with it. As long as they keep going with whatever they're doing, I'm happy with it.
All right, yeah. Now that as we kind of get to the close of this interview, I always like to ask this question also of people, like, what is something, like a nugget of knowledge from your life or career that anybody listening to this, doesn't matter what sort of avenue of artistry they are, that they could sort of project into their own life?
I would just say, you know what? Just be yourself. Be yourself. Don't try. Don't try and be something that's out there. Don't try. Yes, okay, I will say trends, and you follow the trend, and that's good. But the trend will change, and if you become the trend that is going to change, then you're going to go and fall in the dumps as the trend changes. Just be yourself. Be who you are. Rap how you want to. Talk how you want to. Be exactly who you are. Be yourself. Because there's like whatever, like we were just talking numbers. We were just talking like, okay, there's 35 million people here. There's 350 million people over there in the States, and whatever. Who knows? There's a ton of people in Europe, a ton of people in all the continents that's going on all around the world. But you're gonna go and connect with them, and if you get them, just imagine if you were in India that has 1 billion people in India, all you needed was 1% of them. Guess what? You're rocking with 100,000 people. Be yourself. Don't try to be the trend. Create the trend. Just be yourself. And that's all I can say. Be who you are. Just be who you are. And people will love you for that. And they will love you for the fact that you are who you are.
Awesome, awesome. And I always like to end each of my interviews with the same question, and I sent it to you ahead of time earlier today. And that question is, who is somebody from your life or career that I could realistically interview for this podcast that would have some great stories or lessons to talk about?
I'll put it this way, Maestro Fresh West.
Yes.
He would be a great person because before anything, he was there. He was there doing the concert hall. Concert hall to us. What's the historic concert place that used to happen in Detroit?
We have St. Andrews Hall and State Theater.
Okay, I think I performed at St. Andrews Hall with Rozelle.
Probably, yeah.
I think I did do that. Ours is Concert Hall, which is, I don't know what they did with it now, but Concert Hall. All the concerts came there. Big Daddy Kane, MC Light, anybody came to Concert Hall. Now there's other places, but that's where it was. Everybody came there. I'm forgetting the question, to be honest. I'm forgetting the question.
Oh no, I was just saying, who would be a good recommendation for me to interview for this podcast?
You need to go and talk to Maestro Fresh West, and then you need to go and talk to people that do youth business. All these people and all these young cats that have ideas. What is your idea? How do we make it happen? How do you want it to happen? That's who you need to go and talk to. Because then at that point, then you can go and sit there and say, well, maybe you should talk to. You might give them something. And everybody needs something. They just need something to go in their ear. Because we all got ideas. We're trying to do it. And, that's what I would say.
That's awesome. All right, before we get out of here, if people want to get more information about what you're up to, where can they go online to get more information? And what do you specifically have coming up?
Okay, well, everybody can check me at Choclair Official on Facebook, Choclair Official on Instagram, Choclair on Twitter. I am at my limit on Facebook, which is Choclair Chisnock. I'm at my limit, so I can't add any much people to that. But and then everything else is just do your thing, holler at me. I go when I talk to people, and let's go and make things pop. Let's just go and make things pop, and I'm down. All you got to do is holler at me. You can look me up on Google, and you'll find me. And send me a message, and then you'll get me. I'm there. I'm 100% there, and I'm always down to go and sit there and talk.
Awesome. Yeah, man, it's been great talking with you. Like I said, I definitely wanted to get the Toronto hip hop OGs on the show. And you're the first person I've been able to talk to. So it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. This is definitely a bucket list interview for me.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. And yeah, man, thank you for interviewing me and talking with me. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much.
So that was my interview with Choclair. Links to where you can follow him to see what's going on these days in his world can be found on the show notes for this episode at freshasthepodcast.com. All right, that was another episode in the books. I got one down in my Toronto hip-hop legends podcast episodes. So that's hopefully we can get Cardi, Socrates, and Maestro on Fresh is the Word eventually. I'll be in Toronto soon for Canadian Music Week and the Toronto Comic Arts Festival in May. So, you never know who I might run into while I'm out there. And if you're in Toronto during those times, holla at your boy. All right, another episode in the books. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.